Hi, welcome to Ask Jeff, that moment where we take a question that comes from you, our viewer, here in the Church of 434 in Motion, that has been sent via email and sent to us because you have a burning desire for knowledge. We take all questions. Some of them are deeply spiritual, some of them seem ridiculous and silly, and some of them are just questions that I think are designed to trip up me. And I think you send them sometimes just to see if I will answer them. And so this is one of those. Ready? Dear Jeff, does a show have to be on Broadway to be a Broadway show? Great question, right? And I can see why you would ask me, because apparently just by looking at me, you can tell I am a connoisseur of great theater. Yes, I'm very cultured, and it has nothing to do with yogurt. I am able to speak into the world of theater and performance with an authority that many respect and a voice that is respected in theater circles where the bright lights of Broadway shine. That has to be why you asked me the question, right? Does a show have to be on Broadway to be a Broadway show? Interesting, huh? The answer to the question may surprise you. See, when people think of theater, they think of Broadway, usually by default. The word conjures up images of chorus lines, glitzy theaters, extravagant performances. It's named for that street that hopefully you've seen at one time in your life in New York City that runs central to the neighborhood where the first grand theaters opened in Midtown Manhattan. They opened in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. For a show to be considered a Broadway show, here's what you need to know. It doesn't have to be running in a theater on Broadway. It does not. Generally, the term refers to the 41 theaters in the theater district over 499 seats, meaning that for a show to be considered a Broadway show, it has to be running in a theater that has over 499 seats. And you say, wait a minute. So for the show to be considered running on Broadway, it's all about seat count? Is that possible? And the answer is yes. Does that mean that a show that has 550 seats, 3 blocks off Broadway, is still considered a Broadway show? And the answer is yes, because that is how the count is done. That is how the theater district runs. See, at the turn of the 20th century, when the term was first used to describe the scale of a show, a number of theaters were located in Broadway. Today, only 4 Broadway theaters actually have a Broadway mailing address. And if you've ever been to New York, you find out that most of these theaters now are slightly off, a half block down, off the main drag of Broadway. And so in some ways, you might think, well, that means it's off Broadway. No, it's not off Broadway, because if they have enough seats, it's considered a Broadway show. Less than that is considered off Broadway. And there are a number of tiers below a Broadway show. There is off Broadway, and then there's off Broadway. And if you've ever been to New York and you are a theater connoisseur like I am, there have been some moments in my life where I've gotten into a taxi cab and went into areas of town to see an off Broadway show and stepped inside and found, about 100 seats, and thinking to myself, whoa, is anybody else going to show up? And then to find out that a few people dwindle in because this show is so far off Broadway that it's not going to get a big crowd. Then you think to yourself, man, what if something happens to me? Will anybody ever find me because I'm so far off Broadway? That's a whole different story, and that deals with your insecurities. And so I don't want to talk about that, but I do want to come back to the idea that the term Broadway show then really has nothing to do with location as much as it does with the content inside the theater. You say, what does that have to do with me? Well, it answers the question for one, okay? And so I wanted you to know the answer. But just to show off, I want to make a spiritual point. Because see, just like a Broadway show doesn't have to happen on Broadway to carry that title, you can carry the title of Christian, follower, believer, no matter where you are. And that is because of what's on the inside. Jesus on the inside fills you and allows you to be a follower no matter where you find yourself. It's not about location. It's a matter about what's inside. Seems to me that that's a pretty spiritual question. So I'm glad that you sent the question. Glad I had the chance to answer it. Hopefully I've cleared up a whole lot of confusion about that for you. But remember this, it doesn't matter where you are. It matters who's in you and what's inside. And that changes everything. And so feel free to send any question you have to Ask Jeff. Be happy to read it, come up with an answer. Even if we don't answer it via a show like this, I'll email you back. And I'll even tackle the tough ones, the silly ones, the goofy ones. And I'll even tackle the ones that sometimes aren't so nice, because that's just the kind of guy I am. I like to be helpful. I look forward to joining you next time. Keep asking Jeff.